Okay, good day. Welcome everyone. Today I have a good friend, Rebecca, or I know her as Rebecca. She is the CEO
Bobby.
or MD of the Intern. Rebecca, welcome and thank you for joining Mastercast.
Thanks, Bobby. I guess titles are a funny thing these days, whether it's CEO, founder, or just a hustler. I never really know what to call myself.
Yeah, actually, I wrote that down in my sort of pre notes for the show as the hustler, the serial hustler, as I know you.
Serial hustler. Exactly.
So seeing as we're having that as the opener, tell us why would someone call you the hustler, the serial hustler? Tell us about your story and how you got there.
Sure. Well, I guess it starts all the way from university, but we won't go into all the hustling. I've had every kind of job under the sun. Obviously in the restaurant industry, I've been a runner and then a waiter, and then I sold cigarettes, and then I worked at a wine farm, and then I worked at a soap shop. So I always found a way in university to make money and spend that money on traveling.
Nice.
That is what my whole life has been really up to now. Only a year ago did I realize that I should probably save, and studied law. So that was my initial idea, was to become a lawyer. Studied law, even did a master's in Holland, and then the beautiful gap year happened, which is probably more education than anything else, and did my articles at Cliff Decker. And then after my articles, I guess that's where the hustling really started. So I got my salary and I was like, well, this is weird. I don't know if I can just deal with getting the same amount of money each month. And I was so used to hustling during university, working long shifts or being able to work more to earn more money. There was quite a chase in that, that I decided, how am I going to spend this money on making more money? And that's when I decided to buy an Uber vehicle. So would I do it again? Definitely not. I did learn a lot. And ironically, it led to one of my second businesses, which is a cleaning company. So my Uber driver of 2 years, we developed a really good relationship, has now become my business partner in this cleaning company that we run together. So since then, as you know, Bobby and I met at a meetup. After law, I then worked at Offizen, because I definitely had a midlife crisis. If not a lawyer, then what, and I thought Offizen was a really, really good place to just learn a lot about the tech industry. I mean, this is the way we're going. And secondly, I got to network. I got to schmooze, people, and fly to Joburg. So that was really cool. And then suddenly I had to help someone hire a Scrum Master. And I was like, what on earth is this term? So I spent a while researching how, I'm not very technical, I'm going to be honest, how can I be of value in an environment with software developers when it's such a sought after skill? And that's when I moved into the agile space. So it's a long story short, done a lot of things, but that's what my value add is today.
Yeah, that's quite a lot. But well done, quite the journey. But today I want to ask you, and I'm going to probably catch you off guard here, because I want to ask you to give the elevator pitch for the Intern, the company that you've started. What is it? Elevated to, I think you get 2 minutes. What does it go?
So the Intern, we basically specialize in the matching of interns to companies, but it's so much more than that. One of my pet peeves is we're recruiters. No, we take the intern from their beginning journey, helping them draft their CV, even giving them some interview tips, and supporting them throughout the journey so that when the time comes that an opportunity with the company comes available, we've got the interns back, we refer them and they hopefully get the job. And not only that, we also essentially help them while they have the job. We have a partnership with Migro, so we coach them through emotional intelligence, soft skills training. We even have a mentorship program where they can have a specific person in that industry and have a meetup once a month, and also meet with other interns and in different companies so that they can learn.
Oh, brilliant.
And lastly, there's a lot of value to networking. So we
Mm-hmm.
have a group where we try and host events once a month, and we share cool things happening in Cape Town and Joburg. And then from a company perspective, a lot of companies have never hired an intern, so we give a lot of support. We can give advice on how to set up an internship program, and also things like, well, what kind of contract do I have with an intern? We have a nice template that we also can assist them with. So, yes, there is this matching, but there's an opportunity for so many tangent things that can happen, which we do offer.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, I think probably interns. So you released this newsletter this morning around, the value props for businesses, because everything you've just kind of spoken about is more about the intern, which is fantastic. The actual applicant, the actual person trying to enter the business world, because we know one of the biggest issues is, I've just finished studying and I want a job, but no one wants to hire me because I don't have experience yet. And there's that conundrum. It still exists and it's still there. And are you seeing that pattern? I'm sure you're seeing that pattern when the people are finding the intern and saying, please, can you help me find a break?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I really, my heart goes out to these interns, because the reality is I cannot place everyone that applies to get an internship through us. The placement percentage is low, and that is why I try and offer so many ancillary services to these interns to help them improve their chances, or even if it's something simple like just improving their CV. So to speak from a personal story, I myself have built my business with interns, and I have always been blown away time after time, not only with their ability, but also the difference that I have from person to person, and their strengths and weaknesses, but also just their will to learn. And everyone that has done an internship with me, has put it on their CV, has a really beautiful success story. So it's a necessary stepping stone. Maybe it's not even a stepping stone. Often the internship turns into full-time employment, or it can just impart so many valuable lessons on this intern and the business owner.
So tell me, how do you find the interns, or what is the kind of process? If there was someone that saw this and said, listen, I want to become an intern, or please, can you help me? What would they do? What is it, in essence, how does the intern help them?
Sure. So if they just apply to us or email, we have quite an extensive application process on our website. We rebranded in December, and we just love our new brand. And with that, we also built our own database. So last year, I was manually looking at CVs, manually calling people, and now I have an amazing developer that I work with that has built a simple database that once they applied, it pops up. We like to look at university average. We also like to look at which university they went to, whether it was a diploma, university degree. And once we have all this information, then we will only, then we start listening out for requests from companies. And when we find a match, then we'll contact this intern, and we'll have about a 15-minute Zoom interview, quite consistent questions. So if it's a marketing intern, then we'll ask certain questions, and then we'll send that recording of that interview to a company so that they get this intern's CV, they get their cover letter. They also have a generated CV that we do with the information that we ask, and then we also share this interview.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's so great. And there's a lot of youngsters. I mean, I remember when I was an intern, my first job, it was like deer in the headlights. I didn't know where to go, what to do. There was no one to kind of help me in the process and trying to figure out how to do it. It was a long and hard battled road. So it's really nice that you kind of had that value add for the interns. So yeah, we'll definitely share links and stuff in everything we do for today for them. But I want to also kind of dive into the companies that are looking for interns and stuff. Do you find it difficult to find companies that are willing to take on interns? Because we do know that with an intern comes that, the training and that kind of molding, but you find these diamonds in the rough when you do that. But do the businesses understand that, and how's their approach when you come to them or when you see a match?
No, it's a very good question. And what makes this business quite tough is that I have to build a pipeline of interns as well as companies. And some months I have brilliant intern applications, and other months I have companies and I can't actually find interns that suit the role. So, I get a range of companies from start really just need help, and the experience of an intern at a startup is quite different to that in a corporate. Often in a startup they are thrown into the deep end. They don't always get, like you mentioned, all the support they need, but then they get to work directly with this mastermind or Mastercast, with this mastermind that learn that is willing to impart a whole range of different skills onto this intern. So yes, they get a slightly more generalist skill set where they're asked to do absolutely everything from admin to marketing. And then if you go to perhaps more SMEs or more corporates, then that gets more specialized. And then they might have the guidance of, their marketing manager or whoever it may be. So it's quite important, what we do at the Intern is we do play kind of a consulting role, both between the intern and the company. If something happens and the intern doesn't know how to communicate effectively, or they feel maybe this isn't part of their job description, I have a very personal relationship with all the interns that I place. And they often say, hey, can I please phone you, Bex, and ask you for some advice? I want to know how to deal with the situation. And vice versa. I've had companies calling me and saying, the intern was late this morning. I'm like, have you asked why? There also is a bit of a confusion between Generation Z and companies these days, and we're kind of there to help bridge the gap and align expectations, because often it's just a misalignment of expectations rather than a failure on either part.
Yeah, 100%. Wow. Yeah, no, there's like a whole conversation there to be unpacked, but we won't cover that because that's a can of worms.
Yes.
Gen Z and baby boomers.
But Bobby, to maybe better answer your question, the companies that have experienced interns before are very, very excited and will approach and kind of see value. But what's tough in my business, and I know that I'm going to have this for at least another 2 to 3 years, is educating companies on the value of interns. It's a new concept. Americans have been using interns for years, and now there's this huge push towards paying interns in America, and same as Europe. It's compulsory as part of their degrees, but it's so new in South Africa. It's so unregulated. And like you said, companies panic and they think there's this misconception that, oh my word, I'm just going to spend all this energy training this intern. Even just being able to give them any experience is good experience. Within boundaries. We don't want them to be completely overworked, but I think there must be this push towards, if you have any little bit of spare opportunity to hire this intern, do it. There's always a lesson to be learned.
Yeah. And something that in a conversation we've had in the past that actually made me think about, what is the definition of an intern? And everyone just thinks that it's a graduate, but it could also be someone that's doing a pivot in their career, right? And they're just looking. So they come with all this kind of experience or other knowledge. Doesn't mean they can't be an intern because they're trying to break into a new career path. So I really thought that was quite a cool way to look at it as well. And what's great is that we have this massive, South Africa is such an interesting market because we have a conundrum. We have one of the highest unemployments in the world, but on the other side, we have a skills gap, a knowledge gap, a massive gap between being the employee, the wanting to be employed, and the actual employable, because they have the experience or the knowledge or whatever. So what's really great about these intern programs that you're kind of building and all of that, which is fantastic, is actually giving opportunity to people that obviously wouldn't have had it or can't get it because there's no gaps. I mean, it's so difficult. So it's that supply and demand, right? Like, there's a huge supply of people looking for jobs. There's X amount. How can we filter them in and create more jobs?
Yeah, and this has probably been the saddest part of my journey with the intern is, you know, I know people are so desperate for work, but they can't follow basic instructions. You know, I'm quite clear on what the next steps are. You know, please complete this interview. I know your last podcast was with Whamley, and Whamley has also been one of our partners, and they were an incredible part in the process. And what we would do is we'd say, thank you, and we'd encourage them and say, your application is amazing. The next step, please complete this one-way interview kind of as soon as possible. And here are all the step-by-step instructions. And the percentage of people taking the time to do that Whamley video was 5%.
Oh, wow.
So they're willing to say, hi, I need a job, but not willing or motivated to take that next step. And I don't know where it's come from, and I don't know whose responsibility it is to keep following up. So I got to the point where I was following up with the interns, please, you know, the companies are waiting for your video, please. And then I was like, well, if I'm following up already, I don't think this is a good sign. There's no self-motivation in the first place. So I actually look mostly on attitude and how interns interact with me, how eager they sound. And I don't think many are aware that just basic kind of interview etiquette and appearance is what gets you the foot in the door. So I've done kind of articles, and I as well want to do sessions on let's just, you know, well, that first impression is the email. Even saying dear ma'am is kind of irritating, and it's silly, but the person on the other side, they can get triggered by one thing, you know, and unfortunately that's what it is. It's this unawareness of the very first step to getting that job.
Yeah, it's crazy, hey, how there's that gap at such an early stage. And if they were just able to kind of take that, they could springboard their career and their lives. And so very interesting findings that you got there. So what's really great is it sounds like you kind of already doing that first initial process for companies to find people, right? You're kind of already seeing, you know, already now you're saying you're looking at attitude and stuff like that. I want to go back to this newsletter that you sent today, because there's quite a lot of different benefits for a company to take on these interns, you know. So once they've kind of signed up to the intern with you, and now you kind of have it, there are many benefits to the company as well. So for example, I see there are tax rebates. Do you want to kind of just quickly elaborate what kind of tax rebates a company could have by taking on an intern?
Sure. So just to add a disclaimer, the tax rebates are quite regulated, and it's usually directed towards corporate. So it's not like, oh, I'm a startup, I hired an intern, yeah, I get a discount. An example is the qualifying employers can't be a public entity, you know, can't be part of a government. Just, you know, there's a strict list there. And also the employees, firstly, they have to be ages between 18 to 29. So that's the limitation, no one over 30, which, Bobby, that kind of is a bit sad, because if they're transitioning careers, then you won't necessarily get a tax rebate in this instance.
Well, it's the company
that
won't.
Between the company that won't, yes, of course. And you have to pay them between 2,000 and 6,000. And the biggest thing is they have to be working for 24 months.
I know, that's crazy.
Yeah, or slightly less. So it's, you know, it is quite a longer period to get this tax rebate, but it is possible. And depending on how much you pay them, that's the tax rebate that you'll get. So it's a bit of a sliding scale.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I think, yeah, I mean, look, there are lots of benefits, but I wouldn't allow that to be the main reason. And often internships, maybe we can touch on things that get a little bit confused with learnerships or apprenticeships, you know. So learnerships, people here, you know, they're really based on getting an NQF-based qualification. So if you've heard of CETA, CETA actually stands for Sector and Education Authority. But basically, these learnerships are a combination of both practical experience and learning that happens at the same time, so that at the end of this learnership they actually graduate with this
Right.
NQF-based qualification.
Mm.
And they are actually legally binding agreements between employer, learner, and this training provider. And there are a lot of benefits if you do a learnership through CETA. So currently, we don't necessarily facilitate these learnerships. They are quite technical, and dealing with CETA and government organizations can be a process. But that's the difference. Where an apprenticeship, on the other hand, that's where you think of more your trade-based, a plumber, and that's kind of, it's so sad, and I'm speaking a little bit out of memory here, but they did away with this trades program a while ago, and I really want to bring back this concept of an apprenticeship. Many people actually don't want to go to university or have a diploma, and there is such a need for these electricians and plumbers and machine operators. So I hope that we go back into the direction of apprenticeships, and that there's more of a scope there.
Just on that note, I mean, when you kind of look at the market, so you're sitting on both the company and the interns, right? Is there certain fields that work best? So when I say fields, I mean like industries. Are there industries where you are finding that your model works the best for?
Very, very good question. And this is going to lead to some marketing on my behalf.
Go for it.
So where it doesn't work so well, accounting and law and engineering. Why is that? Because there's also a required period, like your articles, as a candidate attorney. So law firms don't need interns. They have vacation work programs, and they're working very hard to getting their candidate attorneys. They already have low-cost labor, in other terms. Same as accountants. You get their 3 years articles to go into auditing, and you won't really find that internship experience while studying. Engineering is another ballgame, and I don't know enough about it to speak to it. Maybe with your smaller companies it'll be easier, but I think that there is a requirement to actually complete an internship during your holidays. So that's not to say it's impossible. Don't be discouraged from applying, but it's a little bit trickier in terms of the demand in the market. There has been a huge demand for, and this is where I want to encourage everyone, sales and business development. So I think sales has a very, there's a misconception of the word sales. It's like, the dirty salesman. But fundamentally, if you know how to sell, you can work anywhere and do anything and become an entrepreneur. Like the essence of how you interact with people is selling. So if you're trying to get a foot in the door somewhere and trying to make your skill set versatile, and you're trying to be flexible, do sales. Every single business needs a salesman. I mean, that's the fundamental aspect or crux of business. But not every small business might need their own accountant or so sales. And we're busy developing content. We might eventually do it online, but I love delivering content in person, and I have some nice training facilities in Century City, and we're going to teach interns or do courses on the essence of business development, the difference between business development, sales, and account management, because those three are always needed, especially in the direction of startups. So listen out, interns, if you haven't thought about account management, sales, or business development, keep a lookout. And then also marketing. So marketing is a little bit trickier. Sometimes companies just want ad hoc projects, but there's definitely a need for interns in the creative space.
Oh, I can believe that. I think that's where my initial mind always goes to when I think of interns and stuff. It's that marketing. It's because it's very difficult, and it's evolved so much as well, and the whole online presence that every company needs to have now, and it's quite tricky. I mean, I'm on a marketing journey at the moment myself. I feel like I should get an internship somewhere.
I know. Trust me. yeah, marketing, do not underestimate marketing. Suddenly I've got 3 different social media channels. I don't know how to get more followers.
Yeah.
So listen out, if I'm looking for a marketing intern.
Yeah, there we go. Me too. And tell me, because you also speak about in your newsletter, you spoke about the talent pipeline, because I think that's something that a lot of companies, especially when we talk about startups, we talk about any company at this point in time, we spoke about the gap, the knowledge gap, not the knowledge gap, but the skills gap for companies. And something that a lot of companies are realizing, that they have to have a consistent talent pipeline. I think one of the big reasons why is that we these millennials, right? These damn millennials, they're YOLO, right? They want to kind of travel and stuff. They move around jobs a lot more than our previous generations. So so they'll get their exposure, they learn, and then they want to move on because they want to see what else is out there. They don't want to, that generation of sitting back is no longer there. So anyways, that talent pipeline is something that every company really needs to have. So can you explain how the intern can feed into that and into companies for them?
So yeah, I've had a couple of intern companies that will take on, for example, 4 interns over a 6-month period, and might only be able to keep 1 or 2. So that is one example of really developing a talent pipeline and integrating. But not only that, so there's an opportunity there by having an internship program, or being a partner with the intern, is that there's advertising there for your company. You're being seen as someone that cares about graduates, that wants to upskill and ultimately hone these intern skill sets, so that they can build and ultimately catapult to new heights with this company. So there's really a 2-pronged approach. And then interns can then speak about it to their friends, and ultimately the more people that you have going through your system, the better. So I'd like to say, on the one hand, companies might say, but it's exhausting having an internship program every 6 months. I've done it now where I have new interns, because we also have international interns, and they can only stay every 3 months. And I've got it down. There's a process, and they can still add a lot of value in that short period of time. And at least there's more people moving through the system and learning these lessons. So I would encourage, rather, have more, give more people this opportunity. And even if they can't necessarily stay at your company, you're building your talent pipeline, you have amazing advertising, and ultimately you can find that diamond in the rough, and help them grow with the company.
Yeah, because there's a lot of them out there. There are a lot of diamonds in the rough. I'm telling you now, I've seen them. My last company did an internship program, and I couldn't believe that we could only take one of them. There were like 3 or 4 amazing people that had to move on. But the thing is what they got to do, and it's so right what you're saying about that advertising, because all those interns really, really enjoyed being exposed on the daily to how things actually work in the day-to-day life. They picked up priceless skills, and this is where we can talk about our agile backgrounds and stuff. But being in a daily stand-up every day and hearing what people, a cross-functional team is doing every day, they are just sponges, just soaking all of that information up every single day. They get to see the company culture. They get to understand, how goals are set, why people are trying to do it, understanding why there are deadlines. Why is that such a word? And at the end, they see the culture within the company. I think that was the biggest takeaway that I saw from the internship program. And what do? They might not get the job, but they'll go out there and tell their friends in the next company, I learned this at this company. How often do we say I learned this at that company? Or I did this way back then? And I think that should be a selling point. They become walking billboards for your company, if you think about it.
They really do. And then they say, and it's on their CV, and then they go to the next company and they say, I had the most fantastic experience. I've learned so much because of my internship at this company. So yes, it's advertising for other interns or graduates, and it's also advertising to get your name out there with the next company or their entire journey, or you'll have the company on their LinkedIn profile. It just has a ripple effect.
That's another point.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I actually have a beautiful success story. So one of my very first interns, uh, he was very, very good at lead generating, and we've got a bit of a process when it comes to LinkedIn. So we use LinkedIn, and we're experimenting with the sales navigator. So it was his role to send out and try and get companies interested in interns.
Mm-hmm.
And he sent it to a couple of companies. Fast forward 6 months later, he studies industrial psychology, and he was looking for his first job.
Mm-hmm.
And he applied at the company, and they recognized his name because he had personally messaged the CEO of that business.
Oh, nice.
So he had said business development and intern Cape Town, and the CEO was like, "Oh yeah, I remember you. You messaged me on LinkedIn." So there's a total a ripple effect that these internships can have.
Absolutely.
And that's just one story. I've heard many others.
Yeah. So we need to wrap up, but I think what would be really nice is, because I think that if we really look, we'd easily find the interns. We know there's a lot of graduates on a weekly, monthly basis that are kind of coming into the job market, and they're looking for a home. So what would your advice be for businesses that are maybe haven't thought about the idea or the concept and would want to maybe take it on? What would your kind of parting words be for them to say, contact us, your sales pitch, but doesn't necessarily have to be a sales pitch, but what would you say to businesses to say, take on interns? What are the benefits? What do you feel is everything else that we've said besides what we said?
So I think for me, it's also the novel perspective that interns bring. They're from a different generation, and they're able to just interject a whole new way of thinking. I mean, they come from a different generation. Businesses, you're also doing something that is benefiting the entire country. It's you're empowering the youth, so it does have an altruistic purpose. You're kickstarting these other interns' careers, and like we've already mentioned, it'll have a ripple effect. And there's so much beautiful skills transfer that is happening. So we haven't even mentioned the fact that it actually lightens the workload. So what I really say is, don't think that by getting on an intern, it's going to double your workload. Of course, there's that initial period of teaching, and you do need to provide guidance, and the intern helps you with that. We help you, and we also hold the company's hand so that they can give the best experience to the intern. And we'd say, just take a deep breath, do it, learn. You're having an amazing impact, and you'll be surprised at how much it lands up increasing your productivity. It has an altruistic purpose. You're helping yourself. So contact us, and we'll help find the quality intern and the intern that ultimately really fits your culture and your business.
Brilliant. I think you're so right. We didn't even touch on that, but yeah, I've used interns, and I think it comes down to how, if you embrace having that person or people join your team, it might not be that they are not productive. It's actually, you just haven't figured out how to utilize them and train them up. And because once they're up and running, man, they can fly. And like you said, these diamonds show themselves and things start shining, and all of a sudden productivity it goes. It might just take a few weeks or whatever, but your benefits come. So I like that. Thank you for bringing that up. But yes, so I definitely agree. Please contact. We'll have all the links in the description, and we'll have it all over. And please contact Becca and get involved and help the youth, empower them. I love it. Thank you for joining, Bex. It's been awesome chatting to you.
Thanks so much, Bobby. Cheers, everyone.
Cool, bye-bye.